Asteroid of fear.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And we are back to interviews today, which I'm excited. First interview in 6 months. And today I have with me Ryan McCawley from Smokin Barrel Briars, which is a tobacco pipe company, um, handmade. So artisan made, if you will. I didn't even know it was kind of a thing until I started following him and checking out his page. But Ryan, Bri- Ryan and I met on at the elevator show with Venison and Surfer Girl, and it was over this shirt, "Be Authentic, They'll Adjust," which is by a friend of mine, Just Be with Scotty G. And we sparked up a conversation, and I thought that his story of kind of what he told me in the short amount of time that we connected, I felt like his story was something perfect for the podcast. Is kind of what I'm all about. So, how's it going today, Ryan?
Man, it's going great. I was actually going to comment about your shirt. I was going to say that's the one that uh, kind of tempted me to spark that conversation because it's just it says everything. You just have to be yourself no matter what, and if people like you, they like you. If you don't, then they don't. It's fine. But yeah, I dig that shirt a lot.
Yeah, it's for me. It's like my reminder um, to do that, to be myself, and especially because I go to a lot of shows alone, like, an hour and a half away. But I meet up with a friend of mine, Alex, or, now I don't know if you're going to a show in the Dallas area. Hey, but that's kind of one of those things is, and, that reggae community, that's just exactly what it is, I mean, I met Alex and his wife in Kyle Smith VIP session January 12th, October 24th. And so, and I still, was hanging out with them at the elevator show. So it's like, that experience together.
Dude,
And
some of my best friends that I have today, I've met through that community, which is crazy, and it's weird how just that music alone brings so many people together, and it's always good energy, it's always good vibes, it always attracts like a certain type of person, and whoever you meet there, they're odds are they're probably going to be a pretty good person.
yeah, that's what I always say is like, especially because I go there alone and just end up meeting people. You're like, well, you already know they got good taste because we're at the same place. We
Exactly.
like the same things. And the premise of the Men of the House podcast is like, I love to go to the Waffle House, sit there solo before I have to be dad and husband, typically when we're traveling, as there's one not in my town. Um, but it's that concept of going, hey, what's the guy's story to the left of me? What's the guy's story to the right of me? We're all here sharing this moment. We already know we have good taste because we're at the same place. We can already connect over that. But then it's kind of like further along, it's like, well, what's his story? And kind of it in our conversation, that was kind of my approach to, when I was like, oh, this would be perfect for a podcast guest to come back because this is kind of what I'm all about. And I just realized I was listening to a podcast yesterday, I think during my walk or something, and it's been right at about 5 years since the pandemic. And to
Isn't that
think of,
crazy to think about that?
yeah, it
It's
almost
like,
seems
where
like
did
it
the
wasn't
last
even
5 years
true.
go?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like we actually lived through that and how wonky it was and how it changed, almost like taking blinders off of a horse.
Yeah, it
And
changed everything.
yeah, and it changed me having to kind of pivot, reinvent myself, and go, now what is it I really want to be doing? What is it that really speaks to me? Because one, you learn life is short. Two, we were kind of duped, and we started to question, I guess, everything we've been led to believe, everything we've been taught to believe. You're kind of you learn that you're kind of brought up to participate in a system, and sometimes we have to participate in the system. I don't want to. Um, there are people out there doing good things in corporate America, uh, things that we need done and that are just fine. But there's a lot of riffraff out in the corporate world as well. And for me,
The majority of it is, I would say, riffraff.
yeah, I
I
learned
won't
that
put
I
the
could
tinfoil
not
hat on.
participate in it. Like it
Yeah,
just wasn't
exactly.
it wasn't good for me.
There's
But
some
it's
people
also
that
like
just are
taking this
cut out
chance.
for it.
Yeah. I saw a post the other day where somebody was like, you know, they do this thing kind of like how school in a way educates you to like join the workforce, how you go to school, you get these little breaks, you get weekends off. I'm like, it's set up like, the 9 to 5 kind of
Your
model.
your factory work schedule. I mean, like I said, I don't want to go all tinfoil hat on you, but it was designed like that from the jump.
Yeah. And then you have homework, which, is kind of synonymous when it comes to the world. Like, okay, yeah, you can punch in and do your 9 to 5. But if you want to get ahead, you're going to have to do some shit once you get home, and you're going to have to sacrifice your evening time that would normally be yours or family time. Um, Now you got to sacrifice that if you want to get ahead. For me, I took a lot of 1 a.m., 2 a.m. phone calls, all kinds of stuff. If a doctor calls in and they got 22 patients on the schedule, well, you better fucking get to rescheduling real quick.
Yep.
Not a lot of people are up at 3 in the morning to have your back on that one. And, it's just, and I think with the pandemic, mine was kind of out of necessity because I got laid off, but it really made you kind of think. And, where we kind of connected was, I remember you telling me that your wife was pregnant, and we'll get to it in the story, but essentially she was pregnant, and hey, I can't do this alone, and I'm going to need you here. And for me, being laid off was, I had this idea that I would participate in corporate America, that I would sacrifice now so I could have the life I wanted later, kind of as a father speaking, like, oh, my daughter will go off to college and I'll be able to be whatever she needs me to be for her at that point in time. But then I got laid off. I tried to get other jobs. I turned some down. I didn't want to relocate. They weren't the best jobs. They weren't me. And it was like, well, the time to be the person you want to be, the parent you want to be, father and husband, is now. You can figure out all this work shit, how to make money shit. Um, but the real value is,
Being
you know,
present in the moment right now.
yeah, not what part of it as a man is what can you provide for your family, and participating in that corporate America thing I was talking about was that was the idea, was to move as a man, to move your family forward in the future. Um, but we're led to believe through this way we've been raised that the way to do it was participating in, you'll never be rich on a salary. You might
No,
do well. Um, and you might be rich figuratively speaking. You might have
on
more
paper,
money than a lot of people, but you
on
may not
paper,
be
you're rich.
you may not be fulfilled, which
No,
is a different whole kind of rich. But
that's the
yeah.
real rich.
So, speaking of, let's start at the beginning. Where were where were you born and raised?
I was born in Arlington, Texas. I grew up in. We moved around a little bit. I grew up in Alvarado for a long time, and then we moved into Mansfield. Started
Okay.
going to Mansfield schools, and I went to Mansfield schools all the way up to my second semester of freshman year, and that's when my dad and I moved to Arlington, and then I finished out high school at Martin, and that was crazy because when I was a kid, they had year round schools. I don't know if
Oh,
you remember that.
I
Yeah, so
graduated in 93, so there was no year round. I actually went the summer of my junior year, knocked out my senior year credits, and at the end of summer two, I took my transcripts and got my diploma and skipped my senior year.
nice.
Yeah,
Well, what
but
what it
I'm
was
thankful I didn't have this year round school though.
well, what it was really cool. I wish they would still have it, honestly. You just got shorter breaks during the year, like you
Uh-huh.
didn't take as much time for this holiday or that holiday, but you got a longer summer at the end of it. And there were only certain schools that were offering it. And so we always liked having longer summers because like we would do things as a family. And it was good for my parents. It was good for us. And so, we kind of bounced around. But I mean, all the friends I made growing up, it's like you leave all that to go to another town and you're basically starting all over in high school, which it was hard, man. It was weird.
Yeah, especially those years because man, you're kind of starting to figure out who you are, transitioning from kind of boyish to man in a way, and all the people that your set of friends that you've been figuring all this shit out with up till now, all of a sudden is like, hey, we're not going to be figuring out shit together regarding life together anymore, you know?
Right.
And now you got to go to a strange place and, unknown and meet new people and a very formative time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and right there, second semester of freshman year, that's when everything's happening. And I feel like when you grow up in a place and you know all these friends and you make all these friends, you know all these people, and you just go into something brand new that you don't know anybody there. You're in a new city. There's just so much stuff, and all these people have probably grown up together for the most part. And so I don't know, man. It was a weird thing to navigate.
Yeah. And Arlington's, for those who don't know, part of the DFW area. I mean, it's all pretty big. Like compared to like I think I told you, I think the weekend before, 2 weekends before, I'd been in Glen Rose doing the Mammoth March. So we went through, I think, Alvarado and uh those areas, and they're not huge compared to Arlington, Like for those who don't know, I had a friend who used to live in Dallas, and one time I asked him about Arlington. He goes, "Well, we call it Farlington," you know. But it's one of those things.
Farlington,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's like, because it takes a bit to get there, but it's one of those things of, my wife and I lived in Austin for a good bit, and if one side of town doesn't have something, you go to the next. The whole
Everything's in Austin.
yeah, and DFW is kind of the same way. I mean, you could spend the day from Dallas to Arlington to Fort Worth, you
Oh
know.
yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel like Austin is everything's kind of more centralized, like right there. Whereas like you would have to travel from let's say Fort Worth all the way through Arlington, Grand Prairie, and then into Dallas. Like it's a huge area, and people don't realize how big it is. It might take you
Yeah.
an hour and a half to get from one side to the next.
Oh man. So did you play any sports or anything like that when you got to high
Um,
school?
yeah, I played baseball and football pretty much my whole life, and then I wrestled in high school.
Oh, how was that? What?
It was the craziest thing. Like it was the most physically demanding thing I've ever done.
I have two brother-in-laws that both wrestled in high school, and I'm a huge MMA fan, and they always talk about wrestlers and their work ethic because the sport of wrestling itself, the practice, is just soul crushing.
It is, dude. I mean, it's every day you're on the verge of like just collapsing and puking when you're training, and it's a whole nother thing, man. If it was funny because like growing up, I played football my whole life, and then when I got into high school and started wrestling, the football guys would come in the off season, and they think they're hot shit, and it's like, oh no, you have no idea, man. And so the rest of them would whoop up on them, and they couldn't wait to go back to football practice.
Ah, so when outside of it being new, well, I guess with it being new, taking up wrestling, it sounds like, you were probably getting some real-time life lessons about that time. What was something that you kind of learned as you were getting out of high school, moving into like a career? And what did you choose? Did you go to college after high school? Did you join the military? Did you go right into a trade? What was that transition like? And, what'd you learn from going to a new school, taking up wrestling?
Um, yeah, it was. I was still. I think because everything had been so shaken up there for a while, like I was still trying to navigate and figure things out. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go to school. And so I started taking classes at just a Tarrant County College. It's a junior
Hmm.
college for anyone that doesn't know. And I don't know. I felt like that atmosphere just wasn't for me. Like I don't, I never enjoyed going to school. I'm when things interest me, I get hyper focused and I dive just balls deep into everything that I'm interested in. But for the things that I'm not interested in, I'm not interested in it. I don't care at all. And so it almost became, it was like a chore, because I don't, it was something that you didn't want to do, that you have zero interest in doing. And so it's hard for me to get involved into something like that and to deep dive into something that I really don't care about.
So you
And
have, and kind of one of those things that's interesting to explore. Um, so you feel very capable in things that you might choose to do that, I know if I do this, if I really like this, I'm pretty sure I can do it if I devote and hone in. Um, but I'm kind of the same way in that if there's no interest, then it's like it doesn't matter whether I could do it, be good at it or not, because I really
yep,
don't care.
exactly. Like
You
you
know?
don't want to waste that time and that energy pursuing something that you really don't care about.
Now, what did your dad do when you grew up? Did he do blue collar work, work with his hands? Was he white collar guy? What did he do?
So my dad was in the car business when I was a
Hmm.
kid. Uh, he worked at a couple different lots, and then there was one place that he bought. He owned a car dealership right off Old Mansfield Highway, like Mansfield, Kennedale area, and it's funny, random thing here. To this day, I don't eat pickles. Right, I can't stand pickles, just dill pickles, and I think it's because when I would go to work with him at that car dealership in the summer, it was right next to the Best Made Pickle Factory in
Oh,
Mansfield, and dude, they had these gigantic concrete vats, and they would lift the lids off of those things in the summer, and that the air coming over the car lot, oh god, it would gag a maggot, dude. It's terrible. And to this day, like if I smell a pickle, it just takes me right back to that spot. And I'm like, I don't want anything to do with a pickle either.
my
But
wife, my wife loves cucumbers, hates pickles.
see, and I'll eat cucumbers too. And it's weird because I like other pickled things, other pickled veggies or eggs or whatever. It's just the like a dill pickle. Just ugh, I'm out. But he was always in the car business. He had his own lot for a long time, and then I guess he kind of saw something that was I don't know, I guess essential to the car business, which was paperwork, forms. And so he started a printing business where he would print all the forms that you sign when you go buy a car.
Hmm.
And then that eventually led into he teamed up with this guy that was developing software for because that back then that was when everything was moving from all paper to computers.
Right.
And so this guy wrote this software to where you could scan all these documents in. It would keep track of everything on a file, so you didn't have to have miles of file cabinets in this office, and you could keep track of it digitally. So he was doing the paperwork and he was selling the software to these car dealerships to do all that. And then that eventually led into I guess he just kind of experimented, but it was always around the car business somehow. He started doing signs,
Uh-huh.
like you would see at a car lot. He started doing like streamers and selling banners and flags, and so it kind of went from the paperwork and the software into more like advertising. Um, and that's just what he always did. And then I guess skipping forward like years out of high school and stuff, like I had done all kinds of stuff. I mean, I worked at a car wash was like my first job. Well, my first job was detailing cars for this guy Pops Auto. He had like a buy here pay here lot off a division, and it's just cash saved up on my
Yeah.
first car, the whole thing. And then I worked for like a car wash, and it's still like trying to figure things out. And then eventually, um, he was like, "Hey, so I built this up. Like, do you want to take this over?" But I had a whole lot of ideas like how to change things to kind of keep up with the times. He did like he didn't do anything with electrical. And at that point, like I'd been an electrician for years. I'd been a lineman for 7 years, and I was like, why don't we do lit stuff? And so we started doing neon and channel letters, and then we started doing parking lot lighting. So if
Right.
you go to a car lot, you see the big 30-foot tall lights. Like, we would install the concrete. We'd run all the wires. Install the poles, the light fixtures, the whole thing. And so I kind of took that over for a long time. And when he started slowing down a lot, and it just got to the point, man, where I was just burned out with it. It was decent money, but I was getting burned out dealing with these people. And I don't know. I think it might have been like the sales aspect. When you walk into somewhere that you don't know anybody, and you're trying to sell them on this idea, or they call you and they just want a nickel and dime. Hey,
Yeah.
can we just fix this little thing or fix that little thing? And you have to talk them into, hey, instead of fixing this little thing or this little thing, and then I'm back here in another week or two to fix another little thing, why don't we just fix everything while I'm here? Just get it all out of the way, and then you won't have to call me for another 8, 10 years.
Right.
And it's going to be a huge investment, but in the long run, it's going to save you money. And it just, the sales thing, man, it's just pitching somebody an idea. That was another thing. I wasn't really interested in.
Well, it's funny, like, so as you're telling this story, what I think about what kind of strikes me and stands out is your dad kind of always having this entrepreneurial spirit, and then you having moved into this entrepreneurial role that we'll get into. And so you always had that kind of example. And regardless of, like you said, it was good money, but one, you just weren't passionate there, but you learn probably some super valuable lessons
Oh,
that
yeah.
have transferred into this current journey that you're on. But
Yeah, 100%.
where, so what did you do? Did you guys sell that business? Because you ended up, you know, working, was it Verizon or T-Mobile running line?
No, so I
How did
think
how
like
did you transition out of this entrepreneurial thing to where you were before you started your current
so kind
thing?
of like to touch back on what we were talking about with the corporate world and the whole
Uh-huh.
thing. I did commercial real estate development for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They call them dirt daubers in the industry, and you would find huge lots of land for sale. Um, you would work a deal with the people that had them for sale. We would develop them, so we would run like tap into the city sewer, run underground electrical, develop pad sites, and then you sell it to a developer, like a home builder, basically.
Yeah.
And that's a very corporate world gig. I mean, I was taking clients out golfing every weekend, going to fancy dinners, stuff like that. And it felt cheap to me, because it felt like they know that I'm just here to schmooze them to get the deal. But they're just gonna kind of, I don't know.
Very
They're
aloof.
not gonna, huh?
Very aloof.
Yeah, they know what I'm here for. I know what they're here for. It's just kind of
Why
playing
do
a
we got to
role.
do all this?
Yeah, it felt so inauthentic. I mean, and I did have fun doing it. I mean, who doesn't have fun going out on a golf course, with a bunch of guys every
Hey,
weekend?
it's a little bit like a strip club.
It is.
It can be fun, but at some point it's like, you know what you're there for.
Right.
Or like I've gone with my wife. Um and that's awkward too in a way, even though it's there and
I don't
we
know.
can do
Those are
it
the best
together.
days.
but it's one of
Yeah.
those things of it's like, yeah, it's like, hey, you know what you're here for? Here are the boundaries. Like, let's just negotiate this thing and get it out of the way, or kind of whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know why I thought of that, but
So
been
that
watching a
was
lot of
my like,
movies on strippers lately, I think, or
hell yeah.
like documentaries where oh, I think it was I was watching the Gone Girls um documentary that just popped out on Netflix, and about the Gilgo Beach, and so you're seeing a lot of strippers in that. That's yeah. I knew I had seen it somewhere. I just watched it yesterday. The days have been so long.
Right. It's all coming together.
Yeah, so you said you just didn't really like it. It was inauthentic. Now one of the other things that jumps out at me is like, hey, you got to spend weekends. This is pre-parent, so it's probably not a big deal. I mean, my wife and I, before we had our 11-year-old, we both worked nights for 6, 7 years and weekends and all kinds of weird ass schedules. Um, but that was kind of as parents. But I think kind of those opportunities teach you about boundaries of what am I willing to do? Am I willing to go out on a weekend and take these people golfing, then to the country club for dinner? You know, even though it can be fun and the company's going to pay for it, still your time and energy are worth something.
Yeah, you're not on the clock. You're not making, you're not making money. You're not getting paid to be there. I mean, I guess technically in a roundabout way you are, but yeah, dude, it sucked. And then from there I I don't even remember. I had a buddy of mine that I worked out with, Nick, and he worked for this company and Encore. Back in the day, it was TXU. It
Yeah.
was electric and gas.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Hey, dude, why don't you come to work over here?" He's like, it's a real chill job. You're out on your own all day, every day." And so I went into that, and I kind of started off the bottom and worked my way up. You start off as like a meter reader. So back then, before they had the RF meters, you used to have to go to houses and read the dials on the meter to
I
know
live
what to
on
charge
I live on
for the
12
electricity.
acres. They still come out here and read them.
Yeah, and so I did that, and then just kind of worked my way up the ladder, and eventually got to a spot. We were doing call outs. I was an FSR senior, so we were doing call outs for like down lines and transformers and service drops, and it was a lineman for 7 years, and then eventually worked out of that spot into a spot called revenue security, and that was kind of crazy because that is investigating and stopping electrical theft, right?
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so man, I worked
That
I
sounds
worked a
kind of
lot of.
cool.
Oh, it was wild, man. It was the craziest job I've ever had. I worked a lot of stuff in Dallas. Was like probably my main hub was in Dallas, and most of the electrical theft was all like that. I would say by numbers, it would probably be South Dallas, Southeast Dallas, around Fair Park and all
You
that
ever
kind of
run
stuff.
into any weed grows?
Oh, dude. So it got to the point where I would be doing these jobs and like the cops would be out there. And so I started talking with the cops and they were like, "Hey, so we looked into the laws here, and electrical theft is a state jail felony. So if they were doing investigations for like a grow op or like a crack house, or they
Hmm.
were going to do a big sting or something, they would want to know if the place had an active electrical account or not. Because if they didn't and they had lights on, that would give them a reason to be on property because they were committing a state
Yeah.
jail felony. And man, that led to some crazy stuff. They would call me and I would just run accounts for them. Sitting in the truck, I had my computer in there and I would run accounts and be like, "No, it's not on." And they would be like, "All right, cool." And then I met some guys and they were all, they were pretty decent dudes. And they started calling me. They were like, "Hey, do you want to come on these raids with us?" And I was like, "Do what?" And he's like, "Yeah, man." It's like, "Do you want to come on these raids?" And I was like, "Well, I really don't have a reason to be there other than the electrical theft." And he's like, "Well, if we bust them and they're stealing electricity, that gives you a reason to be there because you can cut the lines down, you can remove what you need to remove. And so they would call me and they would let me know, hey, we're going to go do, they called it an initiative. We're going to do an initiative on this house. Meet us over here. And so that would, I mean, it made both of us look good, I guess. Like they busted who they wanted to bust. And then I got my job done as, preventing the electrical theft from happening again. So, man, but I saw some crazy stuff. I was introduced to all kinds of stuff that I had never even seen in my life. I mean, dude, I have thousands of stories. Like there were people strung out on PCP riding bicycles butt naked through Dallas. And I've
What?
seen fights and crack rocks and dog attacks. Like, dude, the stuff that I was exposed to in that job was absolutely insane. You could make a TV show out of the stuff that I've seen. It
I
was the
believe it.
wildest. We've been shot at. I mean, dude, I'm telling everything. It was the wildest job. And I think it was after that when I started having the talks with my dad when he was like, hey, he's kind of starting to get a little older. He's kind of slow down. And, do you want to come into this business? And I said, well, I'll come into this business if we can kind of update things and get things going like on a modern trajectory. Let's do things that where it's moving towards. This is a lot of stuff that he's been around for the last 30, 40 years. Let's try to move into the newer age of things. And so that's when I started doing that. And then when I went into telecom, I was out hunting with some buddies down in Central Texas, like San Saba, Llano
Hmm.
area, if you know where that's at.
Oh yeah.
And one of my old friends, um, his family had always been in the telecom industry for as long as I can remember, and it's his uncle that got him involved, and so he has four uncles, and they own this gigantic ranch down in San Saba, and they got all the money there was left, and he was like, hey man, like I've known you for a long time. I So that's another story we can get into later if you want. I met him through the dog, so I'm still a judge for the ABKC, a confirmation judge. I
Uh-huh.
judge dog shows. I used to breed and show dogs. I had 5 generations of grand champions, but I met this guy through the dogs, and we had just always been friends that way. But he knew what I did, like in my personal life, like outside of dogs. And we were sitting on the ranch one night. We had shot a pig that morning, and so I had the pig on the smoker. We were just drinking some whiskey, talking shit by the campfire, and he just starts to kind of open up about this. Man, I've had really bad luck with these guys, and yada yada yada, and I would love to find somebody who I can trust, who's solid, who knows how to get things done, and so I just thought like he was complaining about his job, just kind of venting, getting stuff off his chest, and so I didn't pay any mind to it. It's just like, hey, let him get it out. And then
Yeah.
like a week later, he calls me. He goes, hey, so did you think about that? And I was like, think about what? He's like, dude, I'm trying to offer you a fucking job. And I was like, oh, are you serious? Like, I just thought you were trying to get it off your chest. And he's like, no, man. He's like, so do you want to do it? And I was like, well, I've never worked in that industry before. I really don't know much about it. I was like, I can do some homework. And he's like, I think you'd be great for the spot. And so then I came on as a construction manager for a telecom company, and we did all of the construction in the Gulf for T-Mobile between Louisiana and Florida,
Uh-huh.
and then we did a lot of 5G projects for AT&T in Alabama, and then we did a lot of C-band projects. So it's like testing what's eventually going to replace 5G. It's called C-band. A lot of testing trials in Alabama for Verizon. And man, you want to talk about just a beatdown. That it was so fast paced. I mean, your emails start dinging in at 6 a.m. You're just 100 miles an hour from the second you wake up to you go to sleep. And then like I eventually filled a project manager spot. And so, now you're over everything else,
Oh
and you
yeah.
have these construction managers underneath you, and then you have all these crews that are underneath them, and it's just it
And
it
everybody
was
wants to know, when is this going to be done? What's
yep.
the status on this? I worked
What's
on a
the status
project
on this?
management team at the hospital.
Yeah, how much is this going to cost us? What's the status? Where are the materials? You know, these guys haven't. attendance issues, and all kinds of stuff. And so your day is just spent putting out fires, literally from the time you wake up to you go to sleep. And God forbid a site goes down, you're the first person they call. It doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're the
Oh
first
yeah.
person they call because you're the one that pulls the strings. And man, it was getting to be just too much. And the money was great, but you don't have time to spend it because you're always at work. I remember we went out to we went to Tahoe. I have some friends that live in Tahoe, and we went out to Tahoe a few summers ago for Lake Tahoe Reggae Fest,
Uh-huh.
and it was awesome. I mean, it was revolution, iration, stupid, stick. I mean, it was crazy, dude. It was amazing. But I remember, like, I had put in my PTO, but I still had to take my computer because I still had to be on my team's meetings. I
Right.
still had to respond to my emails. I still had to take those phone calls. And so even though I'm on vacation and I'm with the people that I love the most in this world and I'm doing the thing that I love to do, like I'm still at work. And it just sucked, man. It was so demanding, and I get like work should be demanding. Work is demanding. It's work.
Yeah.
But this was a whole nother level. And like I had done that for a while, and dude, my stress levels were like at an all-time high. I knew I was taking it home. I had a really short fuse all the time. I was just so aggravated and so angry, and I don't feel like that's me. And that's just what I was becoming, And we had this incident one time, and I told my wife. She was at work, I was at home, and I started like having chest pains, and I could feel it all the way through to my back. And my dad, knowing like I don't know how much genetics plays into it, your family history, that kind of stuff. My dad had a few heart attacks. He had a few stents put in.
Oh yeah, it
He was
definitely plays
diabetic,
into it.
and so and he was never like a big guy. I was always taller and just beefier than he was. He was never like a real big guy. He just didn't take great care of himself. He loved his sweets, he loved his burgers, and so I was like, everything kind of plays through your head right there in that moment, and it's like, is this happening? Is this the things that my dad was going through? And so I called her and I was like, hey, so I don't think something is right. Like I googled the symptoms, and I didn't have like the arm pain. I didn't have the jaw pain, but I felt like a deep hurt, just a burn in my chest, and it went all the way through to my back. I took some Tums thinking it might have been heartburn, and
Yeah.
it wasn't getting any better. And she was like, no, like, I don't care what's going on. You need to get up here right now. And she's a trauma nurse at JPS in Fort Worth. And so I went up there. They hooked me up to all these machines. They're taking all these images, all this other stuff. My blood pressure was like 198 over something, and right around that time, that's when we found out that she was pregnant. And we sat down and like and had a long talk, and kind of like what you brought up. She was like, this isn't just us anymore. We have
Yeah.
another life in the situation that we need to worry about, and I'm not going to do this alone. Like, I need you to be here with me and with this baby. And it's weird, like how big of an effect that had on me. Like what she was talking about, because she was right. Like, I didn't just have to worry about me. I didn't have to worry about her. Like, now we're bringing another life into this world.
Did it ever
And
cross your mind for you to be like, because kind of one of the things that happened when our daughter was born, my wife and I both worked. I worked at a trauma center at the time, and I was working 312s, and my wife was working 312s, and anything over was OT. But the thing was is I didn't want her to have to work, and so we did PRN, and it worked out better for insurance and stuff. But they always had enough shifts that she could work. One of us could pick up an extra shift a week, um, since we worked opposites on our threes. But did it? Was there ever a piece of the discussion of going, kind of you as the man going, look, I work enough. Why don't you stay home and just let me worry about it, versus your wife kind of your wife and your health putting you in this position to really sit down and question and make a deliberate decision to slow down, to throttle back?
Um, well, so she loves it. She worked at Parkland for
It's
I
addictive.
think yeah, I think 8 or 9 years.
It's a
She loved it.
personality thing.
It is. It's a personality thing, and she's got she's got her own life stories. To what
Oh
led
yeah.
her into nursing and why she's so passionate about it. And that was something that I never wanted to take from her because I know how much she loves it.
Right.
And so we never really had that discussion. And then when we got together, she was working at Parkland in Dallas, and that was such a long drive. And she stayed on PRN so that she could always have that spot in case
Yeah.
something JPS didn't work out. But it was such a long drive. I mean, it was a beating, and so she eventually moved to JPS. But we never really had that talk because I know how passionate about it she is, and that she would never want to leave that because she loves it so much. And
You
I've
would
never
never
been
ask her to because you
yeah,
love
I
her.
would never want to take something that she loves from her. To just be like, oh, hey, well, you stay at home barefoot and pregnant and worry about my dinner. It's like she's not that type of woman either.
Hey, well,
She's a real strong woman too. So she probably would have gave me some shit right back.
for listeners in other places, although we are from Texas, that's not what we think women are. Stay
No,
at
no, no,
home
no, no.
and be
That's not what we
pregnant.
think women are,
Yeah.
especially this one. She's strong. She's independent. She's a badass. I couldn't do
Oh
this
yeah.
life.
Well, if you're gonna work at Parkland, because I worked in kind of the equivalent in Austin, it's you you got to be able to stand up for yourself, male or female. You got to be able to do the job, and you got to be able to stand up for yourself. Period. Because you will get eaten alive if you can't do either. You know.
Dude, that right there reminds me of this story. So when we first started dating, I went up to Parkland to bring her lunch, and I go upstairs into the trauma wing, and she's introducing me to all these people that she works with, and blah blah blah. And I mean, like, you've met me in person. Like, I'm not a little dude,
Right.
and I'm standing there, and like I'm handing out lunch, meeting all these people, and they have this patient there, and this guy, dude, I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating. And all this guy's like 6'6", big, big jacked black dude, right? He's like 6'6". I mean, he's built like a refrigerator, right? He just looks like he just walked off an NFL line. And he throws this door open, and I'm in the center, where I don't know what it's called, where all the nurses are, where all the computers are, and then
Yeah.
all the
Nurses
rooms are
station.
the nurses station. I'm in the nurses station, and this dude throws this door open, right? And like, he's so big, he has to move it, like duck his head to get through the doorway. He's huge. Throws this door open, and he just starts yelling, "Hey, motherfucker, this and that, blah blah blah. I need this, I need that." And right then, it was like my wife went into nurse mode, I guess. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
she just turned around and she just yelled at him, "Hey, we don't fucking do that here." She just starts cussing at him, runs right up to him, is putting her finger in his chest, and this and that. And in that moment, I'm like, fuck, dude, like, I'm gonna probably get my ass beat here. This guy is a giant. I was like, but I have to defend this woman. I was like, I have to do something here. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna take the whooping. And right then, like, it just dawned. I was like, who is this woman that's been sleeping in my bed that's just yelling at this guy that's built like a linebacker? Who is this woman? And right then I was like, oh no, like, this is a different breed. She's a whole different type of human. And then got him to calm down, lay back down in his bed, got him his Shasta that he was yelling about. He wanted a Shasta, right? Got him his Shasta. He's good to go. Comes back to me, sits down and has lunch like nothing even happened. And I'm like, who the fuck is this woman right now? Like, I don't know this side of you. You've never showed me this side.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, like you were saying, it's a different animal.
I love it. That I got like chills. It gives me kind of flashbacks. It makes me think of those times, and but also just the people I worked with in the ER. Some of the best human beings I've ever met in my life. Uh, a few of the worst. You got those at every job. I don't care who you are.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but you know, some very unassuming people that if if you made a wrong move and it's your last, you're knocking at the door and the Grim Reaper's standing behind you. These are the people you want taking care of you. And
Absolutely.
you know, we I was in the old building before they built the new medical school, the Seton Dell Medical School, or SMUT they call it, Seton Medical University of Texas. And but we were in the old county building, and it wasn't the nicest, but it was the level one trauma. It was where all the BAMC and SAMC doctors came from, the Air Force and Army bases in San Antonio, and to do all their trauma training. And then the people from Colleen and Darnell would come down and do all their trauma rotations. So it was a lot of fun, and I definitely miss some of that. And it taught me a lot about kind of going into my next role. And I could see where I had like some incidents as a manager, or just kind of having worked in the ER and seen and been in these situations, being exposed to it. I kind of knew what to do, even though I was in a different role. And it definitely helps with the freak out factor when you have somebody who's been exposed to those environments. And especially, I guess, you guys being married and traveling, doing any of those things, you're kind of like, she's probably super aware. I know one of the differences, my wife worked on a medical surgical floor, but her level of awareness is different than mine, because working in a level one trauma center, you just have to have your head on a swivel, because if you got desk beds and you got patients like that, um, you, I mean, yes, we have APD there and you have security there, but if you're standing in the wrong corner of the room and a patient gets
Shit goes
between you and
down.
the doorway and the opening, it doesn't take much. And there's
Yep.
a lot of sharp, dangerous things in these small enclosed areas, and so you always kind of have to be aware. And I think of that, probably why I'm usually the driver when we travel, but I just have a different level of awareness, when we go downtown somewhere, because my wife would be all good Samaritan, like, well, let's give this guy $5, or let's give him my leftover pluckers, or blah. I'm like, look, this dude was just over here metabolizing the freedom 2 nights ago. You know, he's lucky
Yeah.
he didn't go to jail. He's not,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm the same way.
give me a
And
massage. Take your bleeding heart to your hands and put them on my back. You want to
that's
do
right.
something nice for someone? Do it for
That's
me.
right. I'm the guy. Uh, it's funny you mentioned that, man, because I feel like when she's at work, she's on that level.
Yeah.
She's super aware. She's in charge of shit. She's running things. But then when she comes home, I kind of feel like she assumes that, not assumes it, she lets that feminine side out where she can kind of relax, and
Yeah.
she doesn't have to be in that hyper aware
Environment.
situation awareness environment. She doesn't have to be there because like I'm there, and I'll take care of that. And so even when we're out in public, like I'm the one that's always on guard. My
Yeah.
head's on swivel. I'm always looking around, figuring out what's going on, where it's happening. But that's why I don't think she feels the need to do that when we're together.
Well, and you have, like you said, you're a big guy, and then, just some of your experience of whether it's the wrestling, the going to a new school in high school, all those things as a man, as a provider, as a husband, are qualities that women look for. Is, if she knows you and knows, hey, look, he's managed to get all the way up to here from here and navigate all that, I feel comfortable, and I can
Let-
relax. And that kind of says a lot.
yeah, it does. And it's I hate to like assume roles in a relationship or anything, but it's kind of like the more traditional thing is, the man of the house is going to be the protector. If
Yeah.
shit goes south, he's going to be able to handle his own, and you guys are going to be okay.
Yeah. Oh, man. I talked about that in this one episode. I can't remember if it was a solo episode, but there was something. I don't know if I, I've been injured a lot the last 6 months. And But I think part of it was kind of with strength training, this and that, the other, about this kind of reality check of going, men, if you're out there, like, if your house caught on fire, can you lift up your wife, people, members in your household? Like, I live in a multi generational household. I live with my mom. I have my cousin, um, my daughter. What if one of those needed assistance? I was a live-in caregiver for a 97-year-old veteran who could not stand, get out of the bed, anything on his own. So it had to have been an episode, and I was injured with a hurt back, and I was like, you know, can you do that for the people you care about if you're put into that situation? You know, I'm 5'5". I'm a little guy. You're a big guy, so there's a sense of security that your wife and those that love you would feel with that. Now, my wife is probably 5 foot, so maybe at 5'5", she feels a sense of
No, I
security.
was gonna say, yeah,
It's
it's all yeah,
relative,
it's all
yeah.
relative.
But I do think about that in terms of just throwing it out there. If you're a young man, if you're an older man, you know, about what it means to not just aesthetics, so you can take your shirt off at the beach in the summer, but so you're a fit person and you can do what you need to do. Such should something happen, you know? Or I mean, you might be driving and witness an accident. I mean, I remember driving home one morning and I saw a guy on a bike get hit, but we were so close to the hospital. There were so many medical people there. Like, boom. And the truck that just dropped off somebody when I was leaving work was picking this dude up. So I was like, holy cow. But I pulled over. It was all taken care of. I made sure to park on the other side of the accident so I could leave once APD got there.
Right.
But you know, it is kind of one of those things that you really kind of never know what you're going to be called to do, I think, as a man, and as being aware out in the world, you could need to assist somebody. It's never you until it's you. It never happens to you until it's fucking happening to you.
Dude, it's so funny that that you mentioned that. We travel pretty often. We go to shows. We go
hmm
to these reggae fests and concerts and stuff like that. And at every single one that we've left the state to go to, somebody always collapses. Whether it's fainting from like heat exhaustion or the dehydrated or
Yeah.
drugs or whatever it is, someone always passes out. And it's weird that it happens because we're always standing right there when it happens. And I just tap my wife. I'm like, "Hey, you're up." Because that's her world, and so she just boom snaps out of it, goes right into action. Make sure everything's good until EMS and everybody else shows up, and then we go back to having our good time. But
Yeah.
it's like that every time. So that's her call to duty. And then when you're talking about being a man, you don't ever know when things are going to happen. One day I'm on the way home. And there's this long stretch of just 2-lane highway on each side, and there's this huge grass median, and I see this accident that just happened up in front of me. And it's this guy in a 1-ton truck. He's towing a trailer full of cattle,
Oh.
crosses over, flips, like throws a few cows out. There's a calf that's running loose. I say calf. It's a big calf. It's damn near full grown, and it's running loose. And this guy is out there by himself. He's probably in his 60s, 70s. He's out there by himself trying to rope this cow. And I was like, I have to do something. Like, it's that call
Yeah.
to action. I was like, I have to help this guy. And so I park on the shoulder. I get out and like I run him down, and we just tackle this cow, rope it up, until he can get the trailer back up. And but it's times like that you don't ever know when you're going to be called to action. It's like as a man, you have to feel like at any given point, right? If anything
Yeah.
happens, anything pops off, you got to be able to handle your shit.
Yeah. I think about that, especially we have all girls. When we go out, it's my wife, three girls, when it's all of us together, and me.
Yeah, dude, you're
Um,
you're that umbrella.
yeah. And so, I mean, the older two, I'm friends with their step to me, but I've known them since they were 2 and 3, and I'm friends with the ex-husband. He and I are tight, but he's a bigger guy. He's probably a 6'2", 6'3" Puerto Rican guy, huge. And so if I can't handle it, then he can handle it. But it's kind of one of those things of going like, hey, like I'm 5'5". My dad was a little person, you know, 5'5", 5'6", 5'7". But it was kind of one of those like, hey, you know, you're gonna have to be mean. You know, you're gonna have to be tough. If you're gonna be, you're probably not gonna be very big. Although I do have a few cousins who are like 6'6", but I didn't get those genes,
Okay,
unfortunately.
it's in there somewhere. They just skipped you.
Yeah, maybe my daughter, my 11-year-old is close to. She's 11, and I was 90 pounds and 4'11" as a freshman. She's already like 4'8" and 60 something pounds. So I'm like,
That gene, she might have got that gene.
yeah, I'm kind of
Yeah.
hoping. But when did you get into learning? How did you get into learning about pipes? Because that is completely different from all these things you've done. But all these things you've done, I feel like gave you entrepreneurial lessons, lessons in boundaries, lessons in, managing stress, both as a family, as a family, as trying to be a father, trying to be a husband. Um, as you've sat here and told me all these things you've gone through, you look like you've had some good proving ground to where you are now that's allowed you to, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're always going to have challenges and you're still always going to be putting out fires, but you're doing it for yourself and there's a different level of passion. And, that's kind of, I think, abundantly clear with you. But how did you get into pipe making?
So it starts. I think I always had this strange fascination with it. It starts back when I was just a kid. You know, we would go spend time with my grandma. She lived right there in Arlington, off of Fielder and 30. If you know where
Uh-huh.
that's at, like that area. And her house backed up right to this church that's off the freeway. And her neighbor George, we used to call him Mr. George. Mr. George always smoked a pipe, and when we would be outside playing, my grandma always had like a garden, so she'd be like, "Hey," we always loved when she did like fried zucchini or fried
Yeah.
squash, and so she would be like, "All right, you guys go pick some squash, go pick some zucchini," or she
Fried
would
green
make us a
tomatoes.
deal. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. She would make us a deal. She had three giant pecan trees in the backyard. I mean,
Ooh.
me and you together couldn't hold the base of them, and they were huge. And she would make us a deal if we went out and harvested all the pecans that she would make us a pecan pie. And so
Yeah.
we were always outside doing stuff. She had this big backyard that we loved to play in, but I could always tell when George was outside because I could always smell it coming over the fence.
Yeah.
And it always smelled so good, and so I think that's when like the fascination around it kind of began. And fast forward to I'm 18, and I was like, I want to try to smoke a pipe, right when you can
Yeah.
legally do it. I was like, I want to smoke a pipe, and so I went to the Parks Mall. There was a shop called Tobacco Lane there. It's funny, I still have the first one that I ever bought out here in the shop hanging up. I went there. It was like an Italian basket pipe, which is just a cheap, unstamped second from an Italian factory. Second just means like it probably has some kind of flaws in it or whatever, and so they sell them cheap because they're still smokable, but it's just not top grade product. I bought that, and then something that smelled sweet, that I thought was going to be good. And I went home and I tried to smoke it 3 or 4 times. I didn't really know what I was doing. I burned my tongue a few times. Like, it was a handful of times. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And so I
Yeah.
just stuck it in the box. I forgot about it. And then, I was probably 18, 19, probably smoked weed out of it a few times,
Yeah.
and then left it alone. And I guess it was probably, let's see, what's 2025, maybe 6 or 7, probably 7 years ago. I um, I was cleaning out some stuff and I ran across it again, and I was like, I'm gonna give this another shot. I want to try this out. And so I started looking into YouTube videos with like pipe restorations because this thing had been sitting for so long. The stem was oxidized, like it was just full of gunk from probably the low grade reefer I was smoking when I was
Well, and
18.
even YouTube, like if you think about how what's come along, like all of a sudden you're 18, 17, 18, and unless like, okay, maybe you smoke weed, but smoking a pipe is different than smoking weed,
100%.
and like smoking a cigar and stuff, you don't know how to do it. But now all of a sudden, fast forward, you got YouTube University. So
Yeah.
you Google pipe restoration. That's kind of your auto thought. Because I'm interested to see like that's how your brain works. You're like, oh, I'm gonna try this
Well, it's
again, but instead of going
like,
out
what
and
do I need
buying a new one, I'm gonna Google or YouTube how to
to
mess with
fix
this
this
one.
one that
Yeah,
I have? And that's my thing too. Is like my wife will also tell you like I'm Mr. Fix It. I think that's how my brain works. Anytime I get a new something, I pull it all apart to know what goes where and how this functions. And that's just how my brain works. Because if something, it's inevitably everything's going to fail one of these days. And when it does, I want to know how to be able to fix it. So I started Googling like pipe restoration videos, and I ran across this guy's channel, Bear Pipe. I don't know if he still does it, Bare. And I was like, oh man, this is crazy. Like, this is so much information on this thing. He has like hundreds of videos on this one really small niche subject. And this is how this guy makes a living is people send him their high end stuff, and he
right.
restores them, films it, and puts it out there for anybody to learn. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And so I watched a few of his videos. I got that pipe back to its former glory. I found another tobacco shop. I went in and I bought tins. So tobacco comes in tins. I probably have some out here in the shop somewhere, but tobacco comes in tins. And so I went and bought a couple tins of some different things. And I watched some more YouTube videos on how to smoke a pipe, because clearly I wasn't doing it right way
Hmm.
back then. And it took me, I don't know, 10, 12 tries at it before it finally clicked. And I was like, this is it. It's just anything else that you want to learn to do, you're going to have to try to do it. Right.
It's kind of like probably people who smoke hookah. You
Yeah.
know.
You can't just walk into it and think you know everything and just that it's going to work right off the
Well,
bat.
and if you want to, I think what I was thinking is, like when you said I finally got it. So there was a point in time where I used to manage a smoke shop called The Hippie, and they used to sell stripper wear, but smokables and tattoo equipment, this and that, the other.
Like the gas pipe.
Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
we would, you know, and this has been years, but some people would use the hemp wick and stuff like that because they don't want certain things. You have people who are connoisseurs of this, and they don't want lighter fluid flavor on their joint, this or that, the other. But when you said I got it, do you remember the exact like first time you got the hit the way it was intended to be tasted and you're like, "Oh, this is what it's supposed to be. This is what I've been missing out on this whole time. This is correct. Now I know what to do and now I know what to look for, and this is going to open up how I when I go to select a tobacco to put in it, how I select it is now totally different because now I actually know how to smoke it."
Yeah. And it's weird, man. It's a timing thing, honestly. Like it's a cadence thing. So,
Really?
yeah, when you're smoking a pipe, you want to keep it just at the verge of burning out, right? Because if you can burn it at the lowest temperature possible,
Uh-huh.
you're going to get all those subtle nuanced flavors from uh, from the tobacco. So there's a bunch of different varieties of tobacco. There's stuff that's aromatic, and there's different types of tobacco on that, but it usually has like a casing or a topping. So that's the stuff that's going to smell good to everybody else, right?
Right.
Is your aromatic stuff. There's English blends, which they have a leaf
When
called
when you're
Latakia.
solving crimes, the fucking Sherlock Holmes,
That's
that's the
it,
one you
dude.
do.
But yeah, there's all kinds of different things. Virginia Periques, there's Burleys, Dark Fireds, Cavendish blends, aromatics, English blends. There's all kinds of different stuff, but it all comes down to cadence. So if you can keep it just at that point before it goes out, most people think that you're just supposed to blow like big puffs of smoke out and it's supposed to go all the time. Well, the problem with that is the tobacco burns so hot, and if it does have a topping, that's going to turn to steam. That steam's going
Uh-huh.
to burn the shit out of your tongue, right? So if you can keep it burning super low for a long time, you're going to get the most out of that bowl as far as
Oh,
performance and flavor and everything else. And so
hold on, you're frozen for 1 second. Oi.
just froze up.
Yeah, it did
Yeah,
the
I was
same
just,
to me. It
you were
froze.
just stuck on the screen. I was going, uh oh, I don't know if he can hear me or what's going on here.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you heard?
Um. So you were talking about a cadence and rhythm, and that if it's too hot and tobacco has a topping on it, that um that's what I heard last.
Okay, yeah. So if it has a topping or a casing, or I mean, sometimes it doesn't even have to. I mean, most of it's cured in a way to kind of bring out those subtle flavors anyway. But if it's too hot and there's any moisture content in it at all, it's just gonna scorch your tongue. It's not, you won't get any of the little subtle nuanced flavors. You're gonna burn your tongue up. It's called tongue bite.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a pleasurable or an enjoyable experience. And it took me a long time to get that. Just like riding a bike. When you start riding a bike, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna skin your knees, your elbows, you're gonna bust your teeth, whatever. But then when you finally figure it out, it's so enjoyable to ride a bicycle, right?
Right.
Everybody loves to ride a bicycle. If they see one, they're just like, all right, cool, and they'll just jump on and go.
And then you almost don't even know how you do it.
Right, exactly. And then when you try to explain it to somebody, they're like, wait, that has never done it. They're like, wait, what?
Now, do
But
you use hemp wick? Do you use matches?
yeah, so there are purists out there. Like I know some guys that'll only light their cigars with little thin cedar sticks, right? Sticks of cedar, because they don't want any butane or anything like that. And there's guys in the pipe community that use sulfur-free matches. They go crazy. But dude, if I'm out here in the shop, this is the go-to. Just your old big. And I have matches too, but if I'm on the go, it doesn't really matter to me. Honestly, it doesn't matter hemp wick or Bic, or the only thing you don't want to use like a torch, like a jet fuel,
Yeah.
like blue flame, just because it gets it way too hot. You're going to burn the rim of your pipe. You're going to scorch your tobacco. So you want to use a soft flame. That's the only thing. But how I got into it was after restoring that pipe, and we call it a nirvana smoke, right? You have a nirvana smoke where it's that aha moment where it
Yeah.
finally clicks, and you go, all right, this is what I've been missing out on. This is what it's all about. And right then, like I was hooked. And when I was restoring that pipe, I was like, this is fun. This is almost like a meditative thing, because when I'm doing this, like nothing, I don't hear the noise of anything else. You can kind of zone out and go into this one thing where you can focus in on it. And it's just you by yourself, and you're fixing stuff. And I feel like that's where I shine the most, is like when I'm fixing stuff. And so I started purchasing lots of pipes, like estate lots. So someone would have an estate lot. Someone's grandfather passed away, or their dad passed away, uncle, whatever. It was a pipe smoker. And they had, oh, we have these 10, 12, 20 pipes or whatever that were my grandpa's. And so I would start bidding on these pipes, and I would get them in, clean them up, and then resell them. And it was just kind of a hobby, something to do. And that was when I was doing the signs and the lighting and all that. So it was always just a hobby that I would do. And then I made an Instagram, and I started posting like my restoration projects, and I joined some groups on Facebook where I met other people, and I told them what I was doing. And so they would send me their stuff to have cleaned or restored. And I did that for a while, and I got comfortable working with the materials, the ebonites, the briars, the acrylics, all this kind of stuff. Like I got comfortable with working it, and I eventually thought, like, I think I could probably make these things, and I've never done any kind of woodworking. I've never worked on a lathe. I've never done any of this kind of stuff, but I was like, I think I could probably make this. And so I'm sitting in the shop now, built the shop out, and I started purchasing equipment, hand tools, a lathe, drill press, belt sanders, band saws, dust collection system, shaping wheels, sandblast cabinet, compressor. I got a buffing station, grinding wheels, heat gun. I'm sitting here where I cut stems and stuff, stem jigs. I mean, like, I've just built a whole shop full of stuff. So I just dumped thousands of dollars into this project, and I was like, shit, like I should probably start making these things to sell, you know, not
Yeah.
just doing this as a hobby. And so I started watching YouTube videos. I started talking to other carvers, and I've never gone and studied with anybody. That's a thing that some of these people do in the pipe community is they'll go study with established carvers. But the problem is, like, there's so much gatekeeping around this. I guess it's the same thing as anything else. If you've worked this hard to hone this craft as well as you have, you're not just going to give these secrets out to people. So a big thing that a lot of people do in this community is like go pay other artisans to learn from them, whether
Right.
it's a weekend class or a week class or whatever. But I've never been in that position. Like I had a good buddy of mine text me last night, and he's like, hey, there's this really prolific carver in this industry. I'm not going to say his name or anything, but one of my buddies texted me last night, and he goes, hey, are you available the weekend of April 21st to go learn with this guy? It's going to cost $7,000. And I was like, yeah. And I go, absolutely fucking not, dude. I was like, I have a family, like I have a house, like we have vehicles. I have to work. I was like, I can't just drop $7,000 to go learn how to make a pipe. I know how to make a pipe, but once again, it's one of those things, like if you want to figure out like the finer details of it. I mean, and this guy's pieces are absolutely insane. I mean, they're selling for thousands of dollars. I mean, he's a master at the craft. Um, but for me, it's one of those things that's like, well, I know you're this good at it, but charging somebody that much money to go learn your little tips and tricks that you're developed, like that just seems wrong to me. And I don't claim to be the best guy out there. I don't claim to know everything, but I make a pretty damn good pipe. And if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I've been doing this and I just don't know how to do X, Y, and Z, like I'll explain it. I don't have any problem sharing my knowledge because it's I feel like when you, in any industry really, if you share your knowledge, things that you've encountered, things that you've run into, and the ways that you have developed to fix this problem or to solve these issues or whatever, it kind of grows the whole community as a whole,
Yeah.
right? Like it makes everybody want to do better things and push for better things. Um, and so I don't agree with charging someone that kind of money to go learn how to do the things that you've
Well,
developed.
because the goal still is, regardless, you still have to be individual and unique
Right. You
and have
like
your
if
own
you wanted to learn how
style.
to do it, I could teach you how to do it, right? But you would have your own style. It would be things like you could try to copy the things that I'm doing, but it's still going to come out your style. Everybody has their own unique touch, and I think the longer that you do this, the deeper you get into it, your style becomes just apparent. Like you can, if you're into this hobby, you can see one of mine like on a Facebook forum or on Reddit or whatever, and you'll know exactly who made it because it's my style. That's something that comes with like time and experience doing this. But yeah, so I got into this. I started buying all this equipment, building the shop out, and I started making them. And I talked to a couple guys, a few of them. Paul Lucas, he has Paul Pipes. He's over in England. He was the first artisan pipe that I ever bought. I bought it for myself for a birthday present. I still have that. Actually, just smoked that one yesterday. This little Devil's Ants.
Oh wow.
He's over in Hailsham. Super nice guy. He taught me. He taught me some of the stuff that I didn't understand, like cutting accent rings, actually like inlay bands. Sean Ream is a good buddy of mine. He's up in Polston, Montana. He's a full time carver. He's another family man. Got a wife and a kid, dogs, the whole thing. Super good dude. And there's a guy who doesn't make pipes anymore, Jonathan Lavazzo. He is into, I think he's doing like fly rods now. He's not doing
Uh-huh.
pipes anymore. But there was just a handful of guys that would kind of talk me through things over the phone. But for the most part, like I figured all this stuff out on my own, just kind of self-taught. And I discovered this talent that I didn't even know I had because I'd never done anything close to this.
Right.
And it was a hobby there for a long time. And, right when my when we found out that my wife was pregnant, and we were in a good position to do it. Like I I decided to leave the telecom industry and launch this thing full time. And man, it's been amazing because I stopped taking commissions. Like I stopped taking custom orders because um, I have like a weird theory. If someone if there's an artist, right, regardless of the medium, okay,
Yeah.
you're a painter, you're a tattoo artist, whatever. If you're drawn to that art, it's like it's for a reason, right? And you should
Hey,
let
Kyle
them do
Smith,
the art.
write me a song just for
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Hey, Kyle Smith, can you write me a song about mowing the yard and taking my boat out? It's like, no, dude, that's not what I fucking do, right? And so once some I did I and that's when I got my start. I started taking commissions from people, and I would build these things, and I'd make these things, and like when I was done with it, they were super happy with it, but I wasn't. Like I wasn't proud to put my brand on this and send it out into the world.
Yeah.
And when you start to put your fingerprints all over my work, it's no longer my work. Like it's
A
something that
creator versus a consumer type of mindset too. I mean,
right. And
you were, but I think, that's probably to something that anybody in an art like medium will face in terms of, I mean, even a podcast. I'm going to have 10 people to try to tell me this should be better, this should be that, this should be this, and this should be that. And it's like, well, one, is it aligned with me? Is it what I'm about? I'm about telling other people's stories. That's the purpose of the podcast. That's what I enjoy. It's about going, hey, what's the person at the counter to the left and right of me while we're at here at the Waffle House? Hey, man, what's your story? Yeah, my wife and daughter are asleep. You make pipes? Oh, really? That's cool. I've never, didn't even know it was a culture. I knew cigars were a culture, but that's the essence of the podcast. That's the essence of who I am because I think there's something to be learned from the story of what it means to have a partner even in a marriage and go, hey, you're fucking doing too much and I can't do this alone. And at what point is it about um, being part of this system that asks for everything but the name of your firstborn, and they'll have your fucking job posted before your obituary runs.
yeah, dude,
So,
and it's funny like you bring that up because two of my fellow project managers had stress-induced heart attacks that year,
holy
and then
shit.
my VP had one like right before I started having my chest pains. My VP had one, and so he was out for a few months, with his big one. And I was like, "Fuck, dude! Like I'm next on the list. Like it's coming for me. Like I feel it. I I had a remote position, so I worked a lot of days from home, but my laptop's open. I got three screens up. I'm on the phone. I'm emailing this and that, and so my home became like my place of work. And so I was always bringing work home. I had an office in Plano,
Yeah.
and would have to go. I'd have to go to the office a few times a month in Plano just to kind of show my face around the office and talk to a few guys. And the only other, I mean, we had two of our VPs and my director were in that office, but we would have guys come and go out of that office. But I still had to, kind of show my face and that kind of stuff. We had meetings and stuff. And then I had an office down in the Gulf in Mobile.
Yeah.
So I was always leaving home. I was flying to Mobile so that I could run all my projects like in the Gulf,
Yeah.
because Mobile's kind of a central location in the Gulf if you're
Yeah.
going between Louisiana and Florida. So you could kind of go anywhere with, a couple hours drive. And yeah, like you said, dude, I was doing too fucking much. It was consuming me. And I found this as a way to step away from it. And the money's not nearly as good as
Yeah.
telecom. But I'm like you said, it's rich in a different way, right? So doing this allows me to let this creative brain of mine just kind of run free and do its thing, and I really enjoy this. I love coming out to the shop in the morning with a cup of coffee, getting a pipe going, and then just start creating things. Just making beautiful things from nothing.
Where did
I
you
love.
get the confidence to, it seems like pipe making is so very niche. Where did you get this confidence to push past, like, let's say, an imposter syndrome of going, this guy charges 7 grand to hang out for a week, and he's a badass. Where do I get off thinking my shit's good enough to even make a go for it and sell? Outside of restoring for people, maybe you make a few for people and they're happy, but then you make that switch to go, no, I'm not making shit for others. It's about me, my style as an artist and a thing. Where do you get that confidence to put that shit out there and just
Man, I don't even know if it's a confidence thing as much as it was just like I was tired of dealing with people's bullshit. When you're doing commissions, you open yourself up to all kinds of stuff, and so it's so much back and forth. You got guys, like you said, the song with Kyle Smith. You got guys that see the work that I put out that would contact me and be like, "Hey, I want 6 colors on this thing, and I want you to carve an Indian on horseback shooting a buffalo." And it's like, dude, that's not what I fucking do. Like, that's not me. You're drawn to me. You're drawn to
art?
my art for a specific reason, right? You're drawn to what I put out for a specific reason,
Because it means something to you.
right? Don't you
Yeah.
think it's best that you should let me do it? You know, and there's some people that understand that concept, and there's some people that don't. Like, I'll still take the occasional commission, but I'll tell them
Uh-huh.
right off the bat, hey man, I don't take commissions anymore unless I'm given full artistic freedom. So if there's like a specific shape that you want, say, you're a fan of billiards, or you're a fan of apples or Rhodesians, or any of the shapes in the catalog, if you say, hey, I like this, and you let me run with it, I'll take that. It's not a big deal. But when you start saying, well, it's got to be this long, and it's got to be this tall, and the chamber has to be this wide, and it's got to be this deep, and it's got to have these colors, and it has to weigh this, and it's like it's no longer a form of art. Now it's a project that I'm working on for you. This isn't something beautiful that I'm creating from nothing and putting out into the world. This is something that you want for your own reasons, and that's
Yeah.
just something I don't get involved with anymore. And so I don't know if it was a confidence thing where it was just like, hey, this is I'm doing this because this is the thing that I found in life that makes me happy. Because like I said, I just come out in the shop with some coffee, put a podcast on, and it's almost like I go into this like meditative state, right, when I'm
Yeah.
working on stuff, because it's just me and a podcast and my tools, and I'm focused in on one thing. Like, I have really bad ADD. I have my whole life. They just really didn't know what it was as a kid, and even if they did, my parents wouldn't have been the ones that was like, "Hey, we're gonna dope you up so that you can
Yeah.
sit in a classroom for 8 fucking hours." They kind of nurtured that. I was always outside. I was riding dirt bikes. I was getting in fights. I was like that
Boy. Yeah.
boy, that's all I was, dude, 100%. And this kind of nurtures that spirit, I think, where I can get in here and I can play with toys all day. I say toys. My lathe was like 5 grand, but it's
Yeah.
like, you can play with big boy toys.
Yeah.
So you're in here. There's You're just in a shop focused in on one single thing, and like I said, the things that I do get interested in, I get hyper focused in. And this is one of those rare things that I've encountered in my life that just sucked me right in and didn't let me go. And I wanted to nurture that. I wanted to go down that rabbit hole and see where it took me. And man, it's been incredible. I'm so thankful for all the people that I've met through this. I've made friends that I think I'll probably have the rest of my life through this. I started going to pipe
I saw
shows. So I
picture.
mean,
Yeah, I saw pictures of a show, and I was like, I didn't even know they had those. I mean,
dude, there's a show
why
for
wouldn't
everything.
they?
Yeah, there's a show for everything. Like, take example, like your Marshall amp back there. I mean, your Marshall
Yeah.
speaker back there, right? There's a whole. I'm sure there's entire societies that are just dedicated to collecting Marshall speakers, right? Or whether it's amps or speakers or any kind of sound equipment, right? So you're going to find Facebook groups, and you're going to find trade shows with Marshall stuff. Every single thing that's out here, you don't really think about it like on a grand scheme of things, but every single small thing out there, there's a thing for it. Whether it's vintage scissors, I'm sure there's a groups dedicated to
Yeah.
collecting vintage scissors, whatever it is. And
Calculators.
I found my weird little niche group, and it's funny because it's a lot like the reggae community, right? Like,
Yeah.
we know the show, right, where it's
Yeah.
kind of the same energy, the same environment. Everybody's kind of like minded. It's the same thing with pipes, right? So when you meet someone who smokes a pipe, odds are uh, they're
I was going to ask what kind of person smokes a pipe.
I mean, it takes all kinds, but for the most part, they're always real down to earth people. They're pretty introspective. They have learned to kind of slow things down a little bit.
Is that the point of smoking a pipe? Is kind of like, I used to, I don't, I don't touch fish or gut them, so I don't. I was very sick as a child, so I stayed inside a lot. I never liked touching fish, but I like to go fishing because fishing is about sitting on the end of the dock talking or playing guitar or something. It's about that slowing down. And so when you said slow down, I think about like in order to smoke a pipe, kind of, you need to take a moment if you want to get the cadence. And
That's
it,
what it's all about. It's like the way I explain it to people is like it's a form of meditation almost,
yeah,
because you're sitting down, you're preparing this tobacco. So tobacco comes in different forms, right? And one of them is called a flake, right? Which is
uh-huh.
whole leaves that have been pressed in like a hydraulic press, and then they slice them thin. And so when it comes out, let's see, I might have some here. Yeah, here we go. So when it comes out, it's like it looks like beef jerky, kind of. I don't know
Oh
if you can
wow,
see that. So it's in a flake form, right? And what you do is, depending on how you smoke it, there's some guys that do like a fold and stuff method. I prefer it's called rubbing it out, right? So you take the flake over a tray, you rub it out, and it comes out into like a ribbon. So it's like it's a whole methodical process. You're preparing this tobacco, you're
I'm gonna
loading
head
this,
over to Tobacco Junction and be like, "Hey man, I'm here to rub one out. What you
and
got
they'll
for
go,
me?"
"All right, man, let me show you the flakes." That's exactly how it is. So it's just, it's like it's a process to do it.
Yeah,
Um, and then once you light it and you're kind of figuring out like your cadence, and you're gonna have to light it a few times to kind of get it going. It's gonna go back out, and it's just ebbs and flows, and it kind of forces you to stop thinking about everything else that's going on and just focus in on what you're doing right there in that moment. And
think about the process. Trust the
yeah, it's the
process.
whole it's the whole thing, man. And I really do think it's like a form of meditation, because think about what meditation is. It's shutting all outside distractions off and being present and focused in on the moment that you're in right now. Um, and so to me, it's a form of meditation. So yeah, it forces you to slow down, kind of stop the outside chatter and just focus in on what you're doing in that moment.
Now, do they
Um,
have? I know they have cigar lounges. Do people go to cigar lounges and smoke pipe, or
oh
do they
yeah,
have pipe lounges?
yeah, there's most cigar lounges are pipe friendly. There's not a whole lot of like lounges that are around
Uh huh.
us in this area. There's one that's in Weatherford. Tobacco Lane used to be, but now they just carry like bulk house blends,
Yeah.
mainly cigars. I mean, cigars are going to be like the tobacco shops. That's going to be their moneymaker,
Yeah.
because like you said, it's a really small niche hobby. There's not a whole lot of pipe smokers out there anymore. I feel like this is one of those things from an old world that
Yeah.
needs to be saved. That
Well,
needs to,
yeah. Yeah. Do you follow Jocko or anything like that with,
yeah,
and the origin clothes and kind of the art?
making the denim here in the
Yeah.
states, the boots, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's there's things that are from a world that we don't know of because we didn't grow up in that world, that I believe
And
are
see,
worth
I'm a
saving.
Gen X, so I was about halfway, I think, between people losing trades, and in the 80s there was this whole push, I think, for college, because like my dad was a construction worker who eventually got a PhD, but it was this
You
kind
don't
of
hear that
idea.
very often.
Yeah, it's kind of this idea of um it was less than if you were a trades person, kind of a thing, and
Yeah.
you needed to go to college, and all of a sudden it was about college, and people forgot the reason of education, which is to make a more well-rounded person. But
It's
and
like
we,
it's like Mike Rowe. You know Mike Rowe, Dirty
yeah.
Jobs?
Hmm.
He always says like teach your kids that it's okay to make cool things with your hands.
Well, because what happens too, though, is what people don't realize is when you make things seem less than, then all of a sudden nobody's excited to do it. And then all of a sudden you end up where there's been periods of time in my life when I've had different things that I've needed a tradesperson for that wasn't my area of expertise. Ask me about healthcare, I can tell you a lot of shit about it. Okay? That's what my master's degree is in. Ask me about a car, I know fucking dick. I I was a very sick child. I didn't work outside a lot. I didn't work with my hands. My dad, being a construction person, going to a PhD, said he fell off a third story scaffold and broke his back and was like, your body's going to give out before your brain.
Is
Use your
that what got you
brain.
going to nursing? Was that your thing?
No, well, did management, strictly management.
Okay.
And so, but the thing is that all of a sudden, if you have enough people barking that and all of a sudden college becomes a standard, well, then when you need a good mechanic, a good plumber, a good electrician, there are none to be found
No,
because
because they're taking fucking psychology classes.
yes, or
Yeah.
because you made it seem like all this is less than and people don't feel good about it and therefore people don't try, they don't put that effort. And that's a whole other thing. Like people, their self-respect, there's this kind of thing, like you strike me as the kind of person, and I'm the same way, that I don't care if I go to McDonald's and get a job today, I guarantee you within 90 days, I could probably be managing it because I have a personal sense of pride. And I don't care if it's taking out the garbage, making fries, managing a place. I'm going to give it 100%. There's a
Yeah.
lot of
You're not going to
people,
half-ass anything.
yeah, there's people who don't have that kind of mindset and they don't do that. And so, and then they end up in the trades doing it because maybe maybe they got in trouble and they're a felon and they need to get paid under the table, or a place that's not going to do a background check. But have a sense of personal responsibility, and no matter what you do, fucking do it well. Like, like if you work on a building, like that shit needs to stand for a long time. I mean, there's a church I pass on my way to Dallas. Every time we pass it, I worked at that job site with my dad. I was like 14 and I had to clean the gutters, but he built metal buildings and owned his own construction company. And I remember it's still standing. My uncle, who's been doing construction local here, I can see all the shit he's built, you know? Um,
And as someone who's built things like that and done that kind of work, it's like that also gives you a sense of pride.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, like I fucking did that. Like I built that shit. That shit's still running. Those lights are still on. That sign
yeah,
is still up. And you can drive by and you can see that and take pride in that and know that like that wouldn't be there if I half-assed it. Whatever I do, I'm gonna commit myself 110% to it
when he
because I
built the engineering building, they were putting a new engineering and sciences building at UT Tyler, and they allowed the engineering students, I guess, to weigh in on it. And my uncle be like, you know, because I was in college at the time, going there while it was being built, and I was a pre med major, and he called me Doctor Doolittle, and he'd be like, I tell your classmates who work on this engineering project, like that ain't gonna work, and he goes, and when they question me, I'd be like, go look at this building over here, like I built that, it's still standing, I built it before you were born, you know. Um, and it's kind of like one of those things, but it made me think of, now, speaking of things and naming, how do you come up with the names of your pipes? Because I notice whenever, like, if somebody goes to your Instagram profile, they're gonna see the pipes, and I'll always see something like the mule, the this. Now, are these design names, are they names you come up with, or are they standards throughout the pipe making community, like this is a
no.
type
So
of this?
all pipes have a shape. Like all they're. I mean, I guess being an artisan, shapes are kind of open to interpretation.
Yeah.
There's no like standard. I mean, there's factories that make pipes, and when they're pushing out these factory pipes, they're cut on like a CNC machine or a jig. So all of them, they can make 100 of them, and they're going to be identical, and like that's their shape. But you can take that basic shape and kind of make it your own. So there's different styles of stuff like that. Trying to get in the camera. That's
Yeah.
a Rhodesian that I made for myself years ago. Like that's an apple. So it's basically you have these shapes, but then I just I don't know if anybody else does it. I just like to do it because it's kind of one of those things. It's like another little thing for me, and like I'll look at it and I'll just think like, what does this design remind me of? Like, what is the texture and the colors and just the overall shape, whatever. Or it could be things that I ran into while I was making it. Like
Yeah.
I did my first bamboo pipe, I think I did last year. And so to master bamboo, that's a whole art form in itself, is to combine the two materials, briar and bamboo. That's a whole nother level. And if you can do it well, that's something that very few people can do. And the first one that I ever did, I went outside to drain my compressor, because sometimes the condensation will build up, and so you have to drain it. And I reached under the compressor and I'm loosening up the valve. Boom! I get stung by a wasp because there's a wasp that built a nest under there. And so, like, I called that one the stinger, because like
Oh,
as I'm building this one, this happened. And so the names come from a lot of different
that's
places.
cool. That's almost
It's
like,
just
having I was hoping I would get number 69, Kyle Smith out of 100 on the deck, but I got
yeah.
like 42 because I was like, I'm a Cancer and I have the little 69 crab thing
Oh yeah.
on the arm, but I was like, but I think that's kind of one of those things that makes yours unique, I think. And whenever I look, I see like the mule or this and that, the other, but I love that with the stinger. Um, so what is, as you've progressed in this journey, I always like to say it takes a lot to take a chance. And I think, we kind of started off some of the conversation talking about COVID, and it's been 5 years, and it's hard to believe we lived through this, but it made people think, reconsider, and make decisions they might not otherwise make, partially because they had to. Um, and then partially, I think there's a level of fuck it. Like, how bad could it get? Like, we've already been lied to. Um, what's
And
wrong with
everything
trusting
applies
myself
to.
and taking
Yep.
my own chance?
Yep.
And so,
Making your own luck.
yeah, what has been something um, since going into this that's happened that would have never happened had you not taken that step back from the project management role or continued to chase those kinds of roles that might have given you a sense of comfort of
Financial stability.
certainty,
Yeah.
and but now you've stepped into a world of uncertainty to a degree as an entrepreneur. Um, but with uncertainty sometimes comes some of our biggest rewards in life, or I think some of the best things that ever happened to us. So, do you have anything that's happened to you as a result of stepping into this realm that never would have happened otherwise?
Man, that's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me anything like that. Um, I will say this is probably out of all the things that I've done throughout my life, and I'm probably like at that halfway point. I'm 38.
Uh huh.
This has been the thing that I've enjoyed the most. Um, I love it, man. I love everything about it. I'm obsessed with it. And I feel like if you're passionate about anything in life, that's how you should be towards it. You should want to know everything about it. Um, you should you should never stop working on yourself. As far as this goes. And I feel like
Right.
the thing that attracted me to this is like there is no ceiling. I get bored with things really fast.
Yeah.
Uh,
Me too. I
because
call it like I have an episode like "What box are you in?" and I go, kind of with any corporate thing, it's like there's a ceiling. They're going to decide on the salary on this is as high as you'll ever go in this role,
right, and
and
you're like, well,
maybe
what
you
if
can
I'm
go to
better than
another
that?
role that's got a cap too.
What if I'm better than that? And
Right.
why can't I ask questions, and why can't I do this, and why can't I do that? With this, you never stop progressing.
The
You'll
sky's the
never,
limit, kind of like a little
yeah, and you'll
revolution.
like the pipe. I don't know. For me anyway, they'll never be the perfect pipe, right? No matter how hard you try, no matter how much work you put
Oh,
into it, they'll never
dude,
be the perfect pipe. So you're
you
always
should make
striving
one
to.
that'll go to outer space. That's what you need to do.
Hell yeah, send it to Elon, right?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
He
we'll
was
call it SpaceX.
he's blazing on the JRE. So it's like, if anyone would possibly put a pipe to space, it would be him.
Send it in one of your rockets, man. I don't care if it explodes right off the launch pad. At least my pipe made it to a rocket. Yeah, dude, that would be super cool. That's actually a neat idea.
Call
There's
this
a guy.
one Houston. We don't have a problem.
Yeah, there's a guy I follow on Instagram, and he started doing wooden UFO sculptures, right? So like he
Oh,
turns it on a lathe and he makes the
yeah,
whole landscape. He puts like little cow figurines and LED lights and like the UFO sucking up a cow. He makes these really intricate, cool little things, that you could put on a desk or whatever.
yeah.
And he started doing it for a long time, where he'd be like, day one of making a UFO until Joe Rogan puts one on his desk. And he would do it, dude. And he got like 2 years into it. And then Joe Rogan messaged him. He's like, hey, man, you can stop. Send me one.
Uh,
Yeah, and so, but he just grew his Instagram to like all this massive number of followers, and then he takes on different projects. Day 364 of making one until Elon Musk sends one into space. So he's doing stuff like that, which is really cool. Like, and he would talk. He would give like history lessons. He would do a voiceover, so he would just do a video of like him working on the lathe or cutting stuff down on a bandsaw or whatever, and do like and tell you something about history while he's doing it. It's a really cool account. I'll send it to you. But yeah, it'd
yeah.
be stuff like that.
So what's something you've learned, or what's something that's happened that, or an opportunity maybe you've had, or has your wife noticed a difference since leaving this and moving into this? Has it impacted your relationship in a positive way? Are
A hundred
you are you
percent.
getting to be the husband you want to be and the father you want to be as a result
Yeah,
of this?
100%. I'm glad you brought that up. It is, man, because like I told you before, I was at a I don't know, I was at a rough point in life. Like I said, super short fuse. I was bringing work home with me. I was always just agitated and angry all the time, and I think the majority of that was because I was spending all my time putting out fires, and I wasn't able to be present like with my friends and my family, my wife, and now my son. And so since doing this, I feel this huge weight has just been lifted off, and I'm able to spend way more time at home now with them. And so my shop is out in the backyard. I'm never far from home. Um, and I can be there for my son, and like I'm not going to miss these milestones of him growing up. And he just took his first steps the other day, and I was able to be there on the porch with him, witnessing
Yeah.
that with her, whereas before I would have been stuck down in the Gulf.
So, what's funny is my wife, I used to always be like, did she walk? Did she walk? Did she walk? Did she walk? Or something. And my wife would be like, stop rushing. Like, she'll walk, and I'll be like, I'm not rushing. I go, I'm
I don't want to
asking.
miss it.
I don't want to miss it. Yes, there's a difference. I'm asking because I don't want to miss it. And I didn't miss it. We actually got it on. They had cameras. We had a camera at the time, the iPhone, but that's one of those things, kind of, you know, my wife, like, one of her clients just had a baby and she can't get the newborn out, and my wife needs to pick up that, and I'm available to go pick up my daughter 40 minutes away. And it's like, if I had the 9 to 5, I couldn't do it. Or I'd have to
No,
be asking off, like, hey, can I be off? My wife has to do this and have to go through that whole fucking rigmarole. And I think it's good for some people. I mean, our situation works for us. Um, but I think as a culture, I think a little bit after kind of being duped a little bit, people are in that I'm going to make my own luck kind of mindset, and we'll figure out a way. And as long as I have enough, I think it takes a while when you leave kind of a corporate structure and you're kind of this lone wolf trying to make money many different ways, however you can, entrepreneurially. It's, um, I don't know. I think I think it's a reevaluation of kind of like, well, what's enough, but also is me being able to do that, that has a value as well. Me being able to go pick up my daughter every day this week because one of my wife's clients just had a newborn 3 weeks ago. It helps out everybody,
You,
and
you asked what I got from this, and I'll tell you, like, I think the most important thing is freedom,
time and
time,
freedom.
man.
Freedom of
Because
movement.
freedom of movement. Because if you think about it honestly, time is the only thing that you can ever get back.
Well, we
You
all have we all have a certain amount that we're allotted, like a bank account, but we never know when it's going to hit zero.
you can never
Yet we
check that
spend it
balance.
so crazily.
Yeah, you can never check that balance.
Yeah.
And so I would say like freedom of movement, it would probably be the best thing because, like I said, now I'm never far from home. I'm at home. I can spend way more time with my son. I don't miss anything. I spend way more time with my wife. We're better at tackling things together and kind of navigating this chaotic shit, of raising a kid in this world,
Yeah.
and we do it together and we have each other's backs. And so I wouldn't be able to do this if I was still in telecom, or if I was still climbing poles and hanging transformers, or if I'm still trying to sell lighting jobs to car lots. I wouldn't be able to do anything that I'm doing right now. And so this works for us right now because I'm able to do something that generates income, that keeps me happy, that keeps
Hmm.
me at a level head, and allows me to be there for my family.
And
So
how's
that
your wife's support? How has that been integral in this whole thing?
oh dude, so I come from an environment with very little support, very little cheerleading, I guess you would call it.
Hmm.
Somebody who's going to be, hey, you got this, you can do anything you set your mind to, this and that. And she grew up in the exact opposite environment. So her mom is always been supportive of everything that she wants to do and encourages her to do these things. And every time I would have these crazy ideas, like my parents would shoot it down.
Yeah.
That's not what we do here. That's not, you got to do
It's
this.
not
You got to keep your,
practical.
it's not practical. And so I didn't get a lot of support and encouragement growing up. And we've been together for years now. And she's still like my number one fan. And I still have like a hard time with it, honestly. Like I have a hard time accepting it. And just her, she's been my number one fan since I started this. She's always just speaking words of encouragement and telling me like, that I'm on the right track and that I'm creating beautiful things. And she loves to come to these pipe shows with me. She loves to meet my friends that we may only get to hang out a couple times a year if we go into these pipe shows. But I talk to these guys every single day online, so she feels like she knows these guys, through our conversations, and she gets to go hang out. And I've never had that in my life until I met her, and it's just like I said, man, I still have a hard time like adjusting to it, and knowing that I have the support of somebody like that that's so important in my life. It's just I don't know, man. It's a different experience.
Yeah. Well, the world is so different too, and the reason I kind of ask it is, it, growing up in the time frame I did was this. If you look at the movies, you look at the TV shows, whether it be the Cosby Show, there was always this kind of male, female, traditional type roles, and we just live in this fucking batshit crazy ass world with technology, and things have evolved in so many ways. And you know and I did this interview with Jason Lang from Evolutionary Men, and we talked about really what we have. And you've had this women's movement. Women can be CEOs now, and I'm happy because I got daughters, and I'm glad they can compete with the men and do what they want. um but also, there's this mind shift of going, we have to do away with what we used to think traditional was and kind of what it provided. And as an individual family unit, to be able to look at what configuration and what iteration of, whether it be employment types, titles we give ourselves, whether it be stay at home mom, stay at home dad, entrepreneur, um, you know, a PRN contractor, whatever it is. But it's whatever works best for the family. what is best for the family unit, your family unit, and is it conducive? Does your wife get the most out of it? Are you the best husband you can be because of this? Are you the best father you can be because of this? Um, and how does that support go back and forth? Because it took a long time for me, with a master's to convince my wife, hey, you want to be a podcaster, and I'm going to figure out a way to make money doing this, and to get her support for it, to go, hey, I'm the same guy you married that busted his ass to get a master's degree and ran two clinics and did all this bullshit. But I just don't want to do it for other people anymore. I want to, the person that didn't lend itself to me being the best version of me. It didn't feel fully aligned because of the politics and the bullshit. Like, what I enjoy is exploring other stories and how they got there and relating to it. And, hopefully somebody out there hears this and it's like they find that hidden talent that they didn't know they have, kind of like you. Or there might be somebody out there who's been fucking around with pipes and has no idea this exists. Although I don't know how you could not in the modern day world, but it could inspire this trade to continue to go along. Because, I was asking what kind of person smokes a pipe. And when you said something about maybe a guy who was in England, I think of like the Sherlock Holmes and, somebody, a sophisticated person sitting in a reading room or library smoking a pipe. But then also thinking about having children. And I go, my daughter was the one that kind of taught me how to use CapCut. And you're going to be able to make pipes with your children or pass along something that can kind of be a family type thing. I went into healthcare like my mom. I asked you your background. You worked with your dad. You kind of go into the family business sometimes, and some are better than others. But I think the world is in a place where people are really appreciating whether it be Kyle Smith as an independent artist, you as an entrepreneur. Um, I love spending my money at a taco truck if I can, as opposed
I
to
would much
somewhere
rather
else.
go to a taco truck or a hole in the wall or
Yeah.
whatever than any chain out there. I don't care what it is.
Somebody out there
Because
hustling, doing the same thing you're doing, trying. So we're exchanging, our hard work, but it's a mutual exchange of a hustle. I recognize you, I see you, and I want to spend my
it's
money here because of that.
I feel like it's that, and then also, if you are, I've had this conversation with friends of mine too. If you are going to a chain, right, that's somebody that's there to earn a paycheck. They don't give a shit about the food they're putting out. You go to a taco truck, you go to a little mom and pop spot, a hole in the wall. That's somebody that puts their heart and soul into every single thing that they make, right? They have a passion for it and they love it. And you're always going to get the best food possible when you go to those places because they love it so much. They're not
Because if
just
you
there.
don't do it right, people don't come back. Where on the other ones, they can comp it with a free meal. But the taco truck, they're if they have to give away a free meal or skip on 15 or $20, they're gonna notice it more so than McDonald's.
100%. So they're gonna give it their all to put out the best product possible, and you're gonna get that every single time you go. And I think, I mean, it relates to everything kind of relates to everything in the broad spectrum of things. So you can buy a factory pipe, right? Something from Peterson or Savinelli or Dunhill, and they're just cranking them out by the hundreds every single day, right? And they're not focused in on uh, attention to detail, right? They're just
Mm-hmm.
focused on getting them out as fast as possible. So the QT's down, or the QC is out the window. Whereas, like, I can slow down and I can take my time and I can make sure that every single thing about this is perfect before it leaves my shop. And you're going to get something. I mean, you're comparing Kias to Lamborghinis, right? Something
Yeah.
that's someone that hand built every single thing and engineered every single part of this to perform its best way. It's the same with taco trucks or Taco Bell. What
Yeah.
are you going to get a better product at, right? It's the same thing,
They
man.
don't
So yeah,
trust the people at Taco Bell to cook anything. They're shipping it already pre-made. You just empty it out and heat it up.
yep,
How hard
yep,
can it be? But
yep.
it's like somebody else, you gotta have, typically probably a taco truck, there's a recipe and it probably only two people know it.
Yep.
And guess what? If one of them calls in, or both of them call in, they ain't selling it that day.
Nope.
But yeah, it's so different. But so what do you see for the future? Do you have any? Is there anything? Do does the pipe industry kind of like podcasts? Do they have sponsors? Is there anybody you can partner with, or do you try to get in magazines or shops, or what's the future look like?
So they're just like with everything else. This is its own little community,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a few relatively good pipe podcasts. If you're ever interested in listening
Oh
to any of
wow.
those, I can send you one. My buddy Sean, I talk to my buddy Sean almost every day. He runs one with another friend of ours, Chris Morgan, that's out in California. It's called Beyond the Pipe, and they do a really good one.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. So, I like going on pipe podcasts. I like doing interviews. I just did one with a guy, Tom Kuhn. He's here in Texas. He does a YouTube channel called Pipes, Tobacco, and Whiskey, where they just hang out, smoke pipes, drink whiskey, and talk shit.
Yeah.
Real nice guy, but he does a podcast too. So yeah, I love doing these things. I love going to these
That's what we
shows.
consider a nice guy in Texas. Hang out, drink whiskey, smoke,
Yeah,
and talk shit.
that's it, man. That's some of my favorite things to do. My wife always
Exactly.
says, "If you don't talk shit, you'll explode." I said, "Yeah, you're probably right." But as far as the future, man, that's like I said, that's one of the things that attracted me to this is there is no ceiling, so there is
Yeah.
no future. You just show up to the shop every day, you put your best in, and you make something nicer than you did the day before. You try different techniques, you do different things, you try to perfect stuff, and I think that's the benefit of going to these shows is, this is a very unique thing, and that it's just us as artisans, individual artisans, and we're doing what we like to do in our own shop. And so when you go to these shows, you go see all these guys that make all this stuff, and you start talking about different finishing techniques or different stem making techniques or whatever, and you pick something up from everybody that you meet, and it just kind of pushes the whole industry forward as a whole. um, so I mean, as far as the future goes, man, I don't know. I love this. I love what I'm doing. I love the freedom that it gives me, and I love constantly progressing through this and working to make something better than I did the day before. Um,
Did I,
I and you asked about like shops, like retail shops.
yeah.
There are a couple that I do business with. There's one. My buddy John David Cole has a shop in Mississippi called the Country Squire, and man, it's
I
they
was
are just
stationed in Meridian, so I've been between Meridian, Jackson, and then if we were going to Florida, New Orleans for Meridian, I've been all around Mississippi.
they're in Jackson.
Oh, I,
Yeah, the Country Squire, super good people, man. They're awesome. They do a lot of their own like house blending, so they blend like their
uh-huh.
own house blends of tobacco, and it's small shops like that that I feel like are trying to keep this thing
Yeah.
alive. They work with, they work with artisans, so they do carry factory pipes, which are definitely like the more mainstream, affordable option for a lot of people. But then
Somebody's
for
whole history, somebody's whole namesake. They used to name people after like what you fucking did for a living.
yeah,
It's almost like so
exactly.
you don't want to lose whether it's leatherworking, cobbler, pipe making, all this, access because we want fucking things cheap and we want it mass produced and we want it blah 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 or we can do it that way and it takes out that yeah, but humans aren't fucking happy with instant gratification. They need
No, dude.
purpose and passion and something that's fucking worth something that's how the world used to work. Like, hey, I'm trading my skills for your skills, or I'll give you half a cow and you come fucking fix my roof.
So, and things, I feel like things in this country started going to shit when we stopped making cool stuff. When we
Yeah.
stopped building automobiles, when we stopped, crafting intricate wood stairways and just beautiful things. When we stopped making beautiful things, that's when things started going to shit. Uh, and so I'm right there with you, dude. I agree 100%.
I wonder if the first thing to bring back kind of artists and shit, and it sounds so now kind of like when you fucking look back at it, just the term because I cooked a lot, farm to table, that whole fucking thing when that was a That was
That's how
kind of
we
the
that's how
word
we try to
shit
eat anyway.
at the time. But
Yeah.
I wonder if that whole like farm to table movement, um, farming, cooking, people becoming more aware about what they're eating and stuff, if that how it possibly contributed to other things because everything's connected. Um, but all these trades, be it shoemaking, shoe working, resoling shoes, pipe making, if that's part of what helps keep this alive. But now it's like people like you with you want to make that effort, and whether or not you pass along the skills to other people plays into that and thinking about it. And as we think about the future and AI becoming more involved and
There, speaking of that, like there are things that I think are going to go by the wayside because of AI,
yeah,
but this is one of those things that's like you're never going to be able to duplicate this. I don't care what kind of machinery you have, whatever. Like you're not going to be able to take like a block of briar like this and
yeah,
make something like this from it. Robots and machines. There's no. I mean, they make stuff on CNC machines and everything, but there's no life in that. I feel like I spend so much time with each one of these. There's like a little piece of me that goes out with it, and you're never going to be able to duplicate that. Truck drivers, they might integrate like automatic trucks
yeah,
or whatever, self-driven vehicles. But there are certain things like a farrier, okay, somebody who shoes horses. You think AI is going to shoe a horse? Fuck no. Like you're going to have those people. Is AI going to come fix your plumbing in your house? Fuck no. You're going to have people for that. And so if there are enough people that keep these things like this alive, I think we're going to do all right.
yeah. And I think the world's in a place where, uh, you know, I don't know. I mean, I never really thought much about other generations too much. I know like a lot of people like rag on generations that are different, but each of them have different things and like different things for different reasons. And um, I think I think the world is in a place of, I mean, just look at independent music. You know, it's like Kyle Smith can go and do what he does because there's a market for it. And
People love that stuff, man. People, and that's just like your shirt. That's the first thing I saw when I saw you at the
yeah,
show, and I was like, man, like I fucking love that because I feel like that's what I try to do. That's how I try to live life, right? It's just be authentic. Yeah, man, I make pipes. That's fucking weird. Nobody's done that in 100 years, right? But it's like it's part of me, right? But that's authentic. I don't give a shit if you like it or not. That's what I do, and that's the same thing like with guys like Kyle, right?
yeah,
His music's not for everybody, but he's doing it because he fucking loves to do it. He's being his
yeah.
authentic self.
My grandfather used to smoke a pipe. Now that I think about
Really?
it, his name was Grandpa Shorty. He played music too. He played banjo and guitar, and yeah, everybody knew him as Shorty.
Nice.
And I had this job where I was a caregiver for a 97-year-old veteran, and his dad was a carpenter, but made their way like when cars were made out of wood. So they built cars, but not in Detroit, but
Yeah.
they migrated from Tennessee. And so it's like that kind of fascination. And a lot of my stories are always usually about, um, you know, we can learn so much from kind of where somebody comes from. And that's kind of why I asked the questions I did. But, podcasting is the same as we're preserving a piece of history. I've seen pictures of my great grandparents, but I never heard them speak.
Right.
You're going to have children who can go and listen to your podcast and they can know this story, how, why, um, and what was important to you and why. And we Gen X people didn't really have that for our parents and stuff. We're just
No,
now
this is a
learning that all
relatively
their
new.
trauma
Yeah.
that was put on by their parents or our grandparents really got pushed on to us. And now we're trying to figure out and go, no, no, no.
Like, how do
Me
I
getting
not
a
do that
master's
to them?
degree and learning that you're not safe in a corporate world, even with a master's, when something
No.
like this happens. So you might
But
as well go do what you want to do.
Yep. That's one of those things. If you make your own luck, you go do what you want to do, the things that you're passionate about, nobody's going to kick you out of that spot because you're fucking doing it.
Yeah. And and you know, and that's kind of one of the things like about realizing it's been 6 months since I've done an interview. Because I took on that project where I was a 24/7 live-in caregiver, and so I did solo episodes. And starting back, I started some solos, and I was nervous but excited. But it kind of reminded me, once we got into the conversation, is like, no, this is exactly what I enjoy, what I love to do. Um, for many different reasons, because your kids can hear this, your wife, any of your family members, pipe makers. Somebody might come to the show for one reason and then get out of it something else of like, hey, I'm about to have a kid and I don't want my wife, I don't want to end up divorced, or I don't want, I mean, yesterday was mine and my wife's 19 years together
Hell
anniversary.
yeah,
We've been
man!
married for
Congrats,
12.
dude. That's a milestone in this day and age. That's awesome,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah,
It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of conversation. It takes a lot of being mad and fights and
figuring things
almost
out, working through
divorcing
it.
sometimes. I mean, but not giving up. And that's kind of what the whole thing is like, hey, like telling my wife, like, I'm the same dude who has the same drive, who still wants to be successful. I just want to do it in a different place. I mean, I'm Gen X. I'm not probably the best equipped for this digital age. My daughter grew up with an iPhone in her hand, been operating it since one. She taught me how to use CapCut. She's going to be better equipped to evolve. But
Well, and that could be the thing, man. Is if this is what you're passionate about and you love doing this, and she's savvy with all the things that are
yep,
gonna go around this. Maybe she's your producer. Maybe
one
she's your
day she
editor,
is.
and you guys are doing this.
She goes to an art school, and what I would like to do one day, it only goes through 8th grade, and she'll be in 6th grade next year, but I would like, instead of her going to one of the local high schools as I did, I would like to take the podcast on the road, get a little van like Kyle Smith has, and just take her, go to 50 states, interview people like yourself, eat the cuisine, meet the people, let her see the place and understand history from that point of view versus being taught by somebody, learning about the Civil War, some bullshit. I mean, go hunt for arrowheads somewhere. I mean, go
I
and
can hook you up
spend a
if you want to
day
do
like
that.
looking at your pipes and checking out your shop and interviewing and doing a podcast and then go on to the next person. That's my dream for us. Um, she kind of wants to go to high school probably to be with her friends, but this is what I would like for us to be doing in 3 years. And that's why I would like to build the podcast up to a place that it would be possible to do it from the road and have some sort of sponsorship, but be able to tell these stories, preserve history. Um, and to me, that's like the new American dream. We used to have different American dreams when it was about discovery and settling land and this and that, the other. But, you know, my idea is to be able to wake up and explore the whole country and eat cuisine and talk to interesting people, where we all get some sort of benefit out of the story or a different way to see something, to understand that we're not alone or that something is possible. To me, there's no other thing that could be better. And doing
Dude,
that with my daughter, the person I love the most, man,
that's amazing. No,
that's
that's incredible, dude.
it.
And
Almost
you know,
sounds too good to be true. It's giving me
no, but you know
goosebumps.
what?
But
It's not. It's not too good to be true because I mean, you said it earlier. If you're going to do something, you're not going to half-ass it. This is
no,
something that you're passionate about, and you're going to figure it out. You're going to find a way to make this happen, dude. Like I got faith. I think
yeah,
this is all going to work out for you. You're going to do all the things that you want to do and more. And I think this is an awesome place to start, and I can't wait to see where you go from here.
yeah.
Because
You're
I,
episode 116, so
hell yeah, man.
it's like, hey, we're going on 2 years of having a podcast, and I guess it's like anything else. And I had found myself. It was interesting because I had found myself in a position where I actually kind of like you. I mean, even doing this caregiving and put myself into earning mode. I needed to slow down for me because it was just becoming too unhealthy for me. I could tell that, through attitude of wife and daughter interaction, that I just wasn't being the most present I could be. And it took a couple of weeks, and it was like, I got to slow shit down, get back to why I remember starting all this and doing all this, and you know, stories like yours are just continued reminders to me of, hey, just keep at it, do it. There's people who are doing it out there every day, you know?
That's such like when you meet people like that and you talk to people and you get their stories, it's such a it's like a reassurance, it's like
Yeah.
a
A little
good
wind
feeling.
in the sails.
Yeah, it's a good feeling to let you know, hey man, you're on the right path. Stick to it, keep doing your thing, don't
That's why
give
I
up.
love like Kyle Smith, because he's just one of those that he just fucking goes for it. Like nothing's gonna stand in his way. It'll try all the time, but he's like, fuck it, like
Yeah,
I'm gonna make
gonna
it
keep.
happen, make it work
That's right.
as an independent artist. And
And he's doing it,
man,
man. He hustles harder than anybody I've seen out there, and it's funny, like watching him kind of grow into this artist that he's become, dude. It's
yeah,
amazing. He's friends with my buddy Dan, lives out in LBC, and we go down to. We have a big group of friends. There's some that are from Texas, some that are from California, and we go out to Closer to the Sun. It's a big festival
yeah,
down in Mexico every year, and we all meet up. So we might see each other throughout the year individually, but we don't ever get a chance to hang out as a group together. But that one time a year, and we always get together down in Mexico every December. And it's man, it's always good times. And Kyle's come and played acoustic for us in the room before, and then we went out to Dan and Kelsey's baby shower out in Long Beach, and that was my son's first concert. So we drove down to San Diego. We took him to see Stick Figure in San Diego. He was 3 months old. Had his
wow,
muffs on, the whole thing.
yeah,
Loved it. And then the next night we went back up to Long Beach. We're just hanging out, and Kyle came and played acoustic for us on Dan's back porch. I mean, dude, it was awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's definitely um part of the community I'm in. They asked like, well, who's somebody you look up to, like for how they grind? I'm like, definitely Kyle Smith.
That's the
He's
hardest working man out there, dude. He's hustling every fucking day.
I hear that song, hustling, hustling.
That's it, man. That's got to be on like a on repeat on in his brain all the time.
That's his mindset track, always hustling.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, all right, man. Dude, it was awesome to talk to you today. I'm excited to put this out, and I'm excited that you are my first interview back in 6 months, and kind of a way, a fresh start to a relaunch and to a recenter and refocusing of both myself, the podcast, and you know, um, with each step back, sometimes we get a little clearer about how we step forward, and sometimes these things are necessary.
that's right. Well, dude, I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad we met at that concert. And like you said, if there's more around here, then I'll hit you up and we'll go. But dude, yeah, I appreciate this. This was awesome, and I wish you all the best with this. I think with your mindset, there's no ceiling in this either, dude. Keep
Yeah,
pushing, keep going.
awesome, man. Go out and enjoy the rest of the day, and like I would tell all the listeners, just go out and be the person that you would want to meet, and you'll run into cool people. Now,
Hell
if you
yeah.
run into a bunch of assholes, you might need to take a look in the mirror and go, it might be me.
Little self reflection time.
That's right, man. All right,
All
man.
right, dude.
Peace out.
Later. We'll talk soon.
All right, later.
Let go.